Hello, welcome back. The government has confirmed the voting age to be reduced from 18 to 16 in time for the next general election.
Well, the pledge is set to be introduced as part of the new elections bill. Ministers say the changes, if they get passed through the House of Commons, which is looking very likely, will mean 1.5 million more people will be eligible to vote in the next general election.
Hey, but is this a good idea? We're now joined by GB voice Alex Metcalfe. Alex, thank you for joining us this morning.
Morning.
Alex, you're 16, I believe, are you?
I'm 20.
You're 20, you're 20.
I'm just a bit older.
OK. So what do you make of this?
To be honest, I'm not surprised. I think it's quite a deliberate attempt from the Prime Minister to sway more votes his way, to try and sort of preserve his job for the next in the next 5 years when the next election comes up.
Well, why shouldn't 16-year-olds get the vote? If they can basically work at that point. They can join the armed forces at least, even if they're not on the front line. I mean, they can do an awful lot of things. They can pay taxes in this country. So why not vote?
I mean, that's very true. But I mean, the main concern I have is that myself, obviously I'm 20, so I've just come out of an educational setting. I think the main concern I have is obviously 16 to 18-year-olds are quite young, they're impressionable, but obviously they have to stay in education until they're 18. Now, the issue with that is that we all know quite well that our educational establishment is quite full of quite hard left-wing propaganda and a sort of loathing for any sort of right-wing opinion. I know I've experienced that myself when I was at school and colleges. So I can see, students maybe being ostracised if they have a slightly right-wing opinion in schools. So, we just need to make sure that that's not happening.
But Alex, I mean, that can work in the other way as well, can't it? Because a recent poll did demonstrate that many young men, like yourselves, were indeed more likely to vote for reform than any other party. Yeah,
that's very true. I think they were second in the polls for the 16 and 18-year-old category, which may give Keir Starmer a run for his money potentially. But obviously, I'm just quite concerned that what we need to do really is we need to remove all the Marxist agitators. We need to expose their madness, and we need to remove them in our schools and colleges. And then what we can do is we can let young kids think for themselves, come to their own conclusion on issues, and then they can start voting the way that they feel that they want to vote, rather than being told how to think and told how to vote.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I see what you're saying, but I mean, the difficulty with that is, and the problem you've got is, you can't actually assume that every teacher, every educational establishment is going along the same lines, can you? I mean, yes, there may be concerns, and there are concerns about some of what is being told and taught, but it's not uniform, is it?
No, but there is, I think, from what I've heard and what I've experienced, there is a sort of a status quo in the educational establishments that, some teachers, some people with influence. I mean, look what happened earlier in the week with that poor 12-year-old girl that got told to go home for wearing the Union Jack dress. So there are a lot more examples of this sort of hardline left-wing agenda that are going around in educational settings rather than a more facts-based approach.
Alex, just finally, if you had been offered the opportunity to vote when you were 16, would you have accepted it?
I think I would have done personally. I can see a lot of young people not turning out, which, is only going to hinder our participation problem, which in itself is a massive problem with people at all ages. And I think these are just going to bolster the numbers, which is actually quite frightening.
All right, Alex, very good to get your thoughts. Thank you very much indeed. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? It is really interesting how it works. I don't like it.
You're not for it, are you?
I think they're too young. I think they're too young. I don't think they've got enough life experience to be voting at 16.
I think there is that argument, but there are some who argue that many of our politicians don't have an awful lot of real life experience, and they are running the country already. So
well, except they are of an age, aren't they? And look, we might not like some of their backgrounds and all the rest of it, but when you hit 30, for example, you have lived life for 30 years in whatever way you've lived it.
Yeah, no, I do think you do need to have had a bit of life experience. But then again, there are some 16-year-olds who are incredibly mature.
Oh, there are.
But there's some 30-year-olds who are incredibly immature.
Well, yeah, but it's about where you draw the line.
Yeah, I know there has to be a law. Well, what do you think? gbnews.com/your say. Are you in favour of 16-year-olds having the vote or not? Let us know, and we'll read as many out as we possibly can.
16-year-olds will be able to vote.
Yes, I think it's a good thing that 16-year-olds can vote. Yeah,
Interesting.
I think it's.
Oh, Bill's nodding away.
Yeah, I mean,
you both agree on this one.
Sorry.
you can work, you can pay taxes, you can join the army. I think it's probably right that you should vote. But I don't agree. There's a big critique in some of the newspapers. This is being done by Labour to curry votes.
Of course it is.
Well, no. I mean, yes, over 10 years, young people have tended to support the Labour Party, but we're now in government. We're seen as the establishment. I don't think at all there's an automatic read across that 16-year-olds are going to vote for the Labour Party. And the reality is they're probably not going to vote.
Actually, there was a poll recently, wasn't there, Theo, about young men in particular being more likely to vote for reform.
I remember being up with, I was doing an interview with Farage up in Scunthorpe just before the local elections, and it was around sort of school break, school closing time, and all these kids come out of school and they just spot Farage and they all wanted to have their selfies taken with him. They knew who he was. And I was speaking to somebody in his team about it, and he's got 1.2, 1.3 million followers now on TikTok. That's more than all of the other MPs combined. And this is a definitive strategy from Reform to try and win younger people, give them a stake, and make them. And Farage did "I'm a Celeb." That's something that's popular with that generation, to try and get them to to turn around and vote for. I just 29.
I don't. I'm not comfortable with it at all.
Why not?
Because I think 16-year-olds aren't proper. Their certainly political thoughts are not properly formed. I don't think they've got enough life experience to be able to be.
You could say that of lots of people.
Well, yeah, you could do. I mean, there'd be a.
You could say that about a lot of the cabinet.
Wouldn't be that crazy to say you shouldn't be allowed to vote until you're 30, till you actually know what's going on in life. But of course, that's never going to happen. But
there's always been those arguments. When voting was 21, it was brought down to 18, now 16. I think the fact that you can work and pay taxes, you have a stake in society, you ought to have a say in how decisions are made, is probably right.
But nowadays, most 16-year-olds are not working and paying taxes. Most of them are going on because it's a government push to go on to higher and further education.
Yeah, but they can. And a lot of them work in their spare time as well. And I think,
Well, I worked in my spare time when I was 14. Should I have had a vote then?
That's an interesting argument, Stephen. No, I think you have to draw the line somewhere. But I still think, if you look at the evidence, they're very unlikely to vote.